Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, and today I am doing more container evaluations. Very specifically here on my brick patio with the aqua pot that was a new container for me this spring. And Savannah and I got this potted like right before spring open garden. So it's been done since May. We are now on August 1st. And I'll tell you, I'm struggling to keep up with this pot. Now, part of the reason that I bought it is because literally half of this container holds water. And it's supposed to wick up and make it so that the plants don't have to be irrigated every day. And I bet that works in some places, but not here in North Carolina where it's 1 billion degrees every day. And I'm having to water this pot every single day. And to the point where like even the lime is wilting dramatically. So instead of being frustrated by it, I've decided I'm just gonna deconstruct it, and perhaps this is a container that can only have one plant, which isn't very practical, but. So I've decided that I'm gonna go ahead and take out the lime and take out the cranberry, because the cranberry, which is hanging over, has really struggled. I'm gonna get those potted and planted in different areas. And I'm gonna let this pot be devoted to this basil, and well, we'll see how it goes. So let me turn the camera around and show you my process. All right, well, obviously the process isn't really very complicated. I'm just gonna, remove my pretty rocks that I've added. And, it's already dry, and I watered it last night. This is not the most practical container that I've ever grown in. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that very honestly. Saw my labels. I actually lost the dahlia that was in here, and this is not this is a Meyer lemon, and I lost the dahlia Renovation soft orange that died probably 8 weeks ago. Probably because it wasn't staying wet enough. And I think I'm gonna need my hori hori, which if you don't have, is this awesome soil knife. Unlike a normal saw, this is actually meant to saw through soil. It doesn't really get dull. And I mean, I think the thing with this pot is that it's just not deep enough for the realistic root mass. So that's all of the roots on that. And I'm just gonna pot that in its own individual container, because of course, citrus isn't hardy. Well, this citrus isn't hardy here. And I have the intention of growing this out, for years, and I'm basically gonna be bringing it in and out of this shed behind me. So having it in a smaller pot that's easier to move is more practical anyway, because this pot is really heavy. When I bought it, I was like, I really like the color. I think it's super pretty. I was anxious to try this because a lot of nurseries are really promoting this, and it's something that Proven Winners is really strongly behind. But I've got to say, just from a practical perspective, this isn't the best pot. I don't mean to be mean about it, but like, I'm not even gonna be able to use it in the winter because it holds water and it'll crack because we freeze here. So I'm gonna have to turn it upside down and not even use it. And the fact that I couldn't keep 3 plants alive together in a combination is just sort of another sign that this isn't the right container for my needs. I think it's a beautiful pot. I just wish it had normal drainage holes and I could fill the entire thing up with substrate. That would make it a better container in my opinion, because holding all this water doesn't seem to matter. It just hasn't helped keep the plants wet. And I really thought that this pot I was only gonna have to water like maybe once or twice a week. I certainly didn't anticipate that I was gonna have to water it more often than all of the other containers that I have here on my back patio. Now, as I'm looking at this, it looks ridiculous to only have this basil plant, and I'm gonna go ahead and look around at some of my other pots to see what I can deconstruct to make this container look more ornamental. Maybe my answer is to deconstruct it now and turn it upside down and put this pot on top of it. All right, let me go take a stroll. All right, based off of the containers that I have, and many of which look really good and I don't want to disturb them, the only thing that I could make sense was to just completely undo this pot and fill it with succulents. And admittedly, in years past, I always had a succulent container here because this is a really hot area. That was why I bought this pot, thinking that it would self-water and I could grow something that didn't require incredible sharp drainage and would tolerate this space. So I'm still a little irritated that I spent so much money on this pot. I already had a container that fit here perfectly, grew succulents quite well, but I'm gonna go ahead and get it planted. I am just using some succulents that I had sort of left over from different combinations. I've been overwintering most of these succulents for more than a decade right here in the shed behind me, and that way I don't have to buy new ones every year and my collection keeps growing. I definitely want to have a mangave in there. This one looks a little bit beat up, but I think that it's going to be okay. I'm going to try and orient that towards the front, but I'm first going to get all of this back stuff in, and I'll confess, I don't know the name of this succulent that's almost like grass-like and has these little yellow flowers. I'm hoping somebody will watch this video and identify it for me, because every Google search I do comes up with nothing. So this is a pretty big root ball. Just gonna set it in just like that. I mean, that's the nice thing when you have mature plants like these succulents. They can pretty well give you a mature looking container, even though, you know, this is just getting potted now in August. And I think instead of using this really big kind of floppy mangave, I'm gonna use this small pup. This just looks healthier. And again, I'm just gonna kind of orient it right here. And I'm just going to backfill with some of the soil that was in the succulent container. And you saw that I just transplanted the basil into its own pot. And it's a delicious basil. That's Pesto Party. And I think it's the best new basil in the market. It doesn't flower until after equinox. So I haven't had to trim any blooms off of it for the entire summer. So there we've got this, and just add a little soil to this edge. And now I can add my decorative rocks, which I love. Mostly I just don't want to see that snorkel thing. And just put those in just to make it have a little extra sparkle. And just like that, I think this pot would really benefit from some sort of piece of glass. So I'm gonna go walk around the garden and see if I can't find something just to give this a little extra sparkle. And basically with this leftover mangave that I have, I think I'll go ahead and clean this up and put it in its own container, and then I don't need this big plastic pot to be in use at all. Well, now I at least know I'm not going to have to water this every single day because it's succulents, And even though the hose is really close to here, that's not really the point. It's the technology of the pot doesn't really meet my needs. And so I wanted to make this video just to put that information on your radar, because there's a lot of different kinds of containers, some of which cost a lot of money, and they don't necessarily work as well as they should. And I think this is a perfect example. Now, it's gonna be fine now, and it's not that it wasn't fine before, it's just that it didn't deliver what it promised. And well, I could have just gotten a really inexpensive plastic pot and probably had a more successful experience with my original plant combination. And that's why these plant container evaluations midsummer are really important. Sometimes it's for you to recognize one variety is better than another. Sometimes it's better to understand where a pot should be in your garden, and others is just to make sure that you don't keep making the same mistakes. I can tell you I'm not going to buy another one of these pots, because remember, I still now have to deal with this container through the winter. It can't be planted because it'll crack when the water expands and freezes. So it's basically just a really expensive riser, which again, I don't actually need. So I do hope this video will be helpful. I hope you will walk around your gardens and evaluate your pots, and if something is underperforming or causing you too much maintenance, now is a great time to go ahead, rip it apart, get it replanted so that it'll meet your realistic needs, because August is a really hot month and nobody should have to be tied to a hose because their containers aren't self-watering. Well, as always, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Happy container gardening!